We're getting back on track here with Catherine and Emily, but as you know, we won't stay there for long because this is the Going Off Track podcast. Hello, and welcome back to the Going Off Track podcast. I'm Catherine, that's Emily, and we're going to Spain for the end of this next triple header.
España. I'm
Yes.
excited to get back to like good quality racing because we had Imola, meh. We had Monaco, meh. Spain always delivers though. I feel like Barcelona is always a good race.
Yeah, which is interesting that we are transitioning, or F1 is transitioning away from Barcelona to go to Madrid. So I think that's just, Spain in general is very complicated on the F1 calendar, but I think it's very interesting that we're on the verge of losing this track and hope that this combo street track that we're going to be getting out of Madrid, the Medring, which I still hate that name.
I'm going Mad Ring, just like not Medring, it's Mad
Ring. Yeah, I think that might be the only way that I'm going to be able to wrap my head around it because not my favorite.
Yeah, but I don't know. I'm so like super off track, but I'm not super excited to see Madrid on the schedule just because I think I love Barcelona. It's such a great race. It's not the classic, but like we've had it on the calendar for a very long time. They do testing at Barcelona, and I guess that's why I was like super surprised to see them move away from Barcelona and going to Madrid, but who knows? I don't know. We'll see. Only time will tell.
Especially because I think we're getting to this, we're transitioning to this point in the existence of Formula One where it is harder and harder to get on the calendar. It's harder and harder to stay on the calendar, but it's also harder and harder to get back onto the calendar. Like the tracks that we have, that we have lost over the last few years, France is one that comes to mind, is, it's going to be very difficult for tracks that come off the calendar to come back on.
Well, and France is such a not a weird one, but an interesting one because like there's a French team and there's French drivers, and you would think in Europe where would we have races, right? And
France.
And I think France, but we don't have a GP anymore. We did, not anymore. But maybe it'll come back. Who knows?
Yeah, and then speaking
whole, like musical chairs thing that we're doing with the calendar.
Exactly. And speaking of the musical chairs and speaking of specifically the French Grand Prix, one of the former manager of the French Grand Prix, who was a former team principal with McLaren and Lotus, Eric Boullier, he is leading the charge of a bid from Morocco to get on the F1 calendar, which is very interesting for a lot of reasons. They don't have a track right now, but there's a project about 20 kilometers south of the city of Tangiers that would include space for an F1 rated circuit that could lead to them joining the push with South Africa and Rwanda to get on the calendar.
Yeah, I mean, I love this. I think we've talked about this ad nauseum of bringing F1 to all continents, obviously besides Antarctica, because that's like nearly impossible. And no, not nearly, it is impossible. I don't love the Africa race going to Morocco though. For some reason I want it to be South Africa. That's where I want it to be.
That's the most interesting part is like everybody is excited about the idea of Morocco because of how convenient it is to Europe.
Right. Yeah.
But I agree with you. Like it like, not to get into like any like geopolitical tensions but like Morocco just feels too far north for it to be like a real trip to Africa. Says somebody who's never been to Africa before and has no like very little concept of it. But I just like it's that's the part that stands out to me of the sense of like, is it Africa? Yes. Is it the Africa that most people who say we want to bring a race back to Africa are looking for? I would say no.
Right. And I mean, not to take anything away from Morocco, but you can take a ferry from like Portugal or Spain and get to Morocco in like an hour. So it's like, if you want to go to Africa, I mean, yes, it is Africa, but I just, I don't know.
And Africa is just
but
such a massive continent as
yeah, I mean,
well.
anywhere you go in Africa, but the same could be said, like, we go to the Middle East and it's super close to Africa too. So it's like, you
Yeah,
know, Africa's proximity to all the other races is actually like closer than the US, if you think about
exactly.
it. So anywhere in Africa would be probably more convenient. I feel like Rwanda is really the long shot of this. Like, if Morocco already has someone heading up a project, they're super serious about it. I know Rwanda, they had like the awards there, and they had, you know, Max did his community service there. Do I think it would be really cool to have an F1 track in Rwanda, like through the jungle with gorillas? Absolutely. Is it going to happen? I don't think so. I think South Africa
Yeah.
or Morocco are more likely. And just with everything going on in South Africa right now, I think Morocco at this point in time might be the most realistic, even though it's not necessarily like where we've all been envisioning the Africa race.
Yeah, it brings to mind a lot of the current Middle Eastern push to tourism that we've been seeing the last, what we'll call it, a decade or so, where they want to bring an Abu Dhabi-esque coastal situation to Morocco. For, you know, it would be a track that's like basically on the water, like a replace, not a replacement Zandvoort, but like something that's like right by the sea. And I think it's so interesting. And then of course it's, will South Africa get their circuit re-rated for F1 races? How long will that take? How long will this whole project take? Because this project that we're talking about near Tangiers is a project, it's like in the hundreds, like the high hundreds of billions of dollars, and is going to involve lots of tourist attractions. They're going to have to build out everything, the track itself, all the accommodations, hotels, everything to bring in tourists, period. So this is like a very long-term situation that we're looking at.
But you never know. Someone will come in with a lot of money, throw it around, and it could be done quicker than we think. So
Apparently
you
there
never
is,
know in F1.
exactly, but they're also like, they have secured a lot of the backing, which is why they've you know, gone ahead with all of the announcements saying that, you know, they're making a push. It's like when, you know, a couple months ago we were talking about Thailand has been making this push to bring an F1 street race to Thailand, and of course the second you hear the word street race, Stefano Domenicali's like, yes, count me in. And that, you know, that also is, they have to go through the government, they have to go through all, like, you know, getting, you know, permits, and actually going through the design process of actually designing a track and all of that stuff. So these are things that, with the bureaucracy involved, takes a little bit of time, but it's very interesting to see what names are being shouted out most often lately when it comes to joining the calendar and leaving the calendar.
Yeah. So in addition to calendar speculation, one of our other favorite things to talk about is corporate sponsorships.
Yep.
So it came out that F1 is partnering with PepsiCo, and this will be a long-term, more than a year, partnership through 2030. So, and this is the part that I love. Gatorade is going to become the F1 official sports drink sponsor for sprint races.
Yeah. So
Specifically.
I thought that was really interesting, and it's a great way to get even more eyes on the sprints, because I think that they have already seen over the years that we've had the sprint races on the calendar that you get. I think they said it's about a 10% bump in viewership on sprint weekends compared to regular F1 weekends, which makes sense because
Yep.
I'm not always going to wake up for FP1, but I will wake up for a sprint race, even though it's at
Absolutely.
absolute BFE. And so they're gonna start this, the Gatorade branding that will come through this year. We'll see it with the rest of the sprint races. I don't know when the next sprint race is. It's not in my current brain capacity yet, but we'll start seeing the Gatorade tie-ins for that. Obviously, it's one of the biggest known sports brands in the United States, so it's huge.
Yep.
Sting, which is a brand that I've never heard of, but I also don't drink energy drinks, will be joining as the official energy drink of Formula One, and Doritos as the quote-unquote official savory snack.
Hold on.
Yes,
Sting must be an international thing.
it must be.
I've never heard of this. But it's made by Rockstar.
Right, which,
And
like I said,
Rockstar is owned by Coke. Competitor of Monster, if you will. So super
Yes.
interesting that Monster did not get this because Monster's been in F1 for a while. They were a sponsor of Mercedes, now they're a sponsor of McLaren. So
Yeah, Lewis
interesting.
had also individually partnered with them for a very long time before he left for Ferrari. So
Yep.
that's very interesting.
Hmm.
I just love the Doritos as the official savory snack, and it's going to be a lot of like co-branding and like having, you know, little pictures of Max Verstappen and Yuki Tsunoda on a Doritos bag and things like
Yeah.
that. So it's a further push for more Formula One branding in the United States.
I would like to know what the official snack of FP1 is going to be.
Yes.
Tell
That
me.
the official snack of FP1 in Europe is Catherine is still asleep because Catherine tends not to watch FP1 when we're in Europe because it's too
Oh,
dang
it's
early.
so miserably early. Okay, well, I have nothing else fun to talk about news-wise because we literally have nothing because we just keep having race after race after race.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
something I
before we get into that, the only thing that I've really been seeing post Monaco has been Monaco was bad. James Vowles and Toto Wolff were yelling at each other
oh
from the
my
pit
God,
lane, and
so good.
it's been so funny how they've both gone around explaining that. Like James Vowles, the Williams Instagram account posted a video today just explaining it, and he's like, "We were shouting because the pit lane was loud," which is a totally reasonable answer, but it gives you this perfect, beautiful new meme format of Toto and James yelling at each other, and not like yelling at each other angrily, but like the general shouting that I just think is really funny. And that Formula One is great because it has these moments.
Well, that's like saying like, "Ah, yes, the water is wet because it is water."
Yeah. Yeah, it's you can put that in the bag of like funny memey moments from F1, which it reminds me of the it's not like just like it, but it's like that meme of the two ladies yelling at the cat, and the cat is like sitting at a dinner table. Like I like that's just the vibe that I get from those pictures of James and Toto talking to each other. And they're like, "Oh yeah, we were just shouting because it was loud, and we were trying to figure out how to have a better Monaco."
Yeah, well, we're all trying, and the FIA is failing, so
Yeah. Well, there have been more rumbles about like actually changing up the track configuration, which
I
is
did see
very
that
difficult
too.
to do, but I think might be, other than the smaller cars that we're going to get in 2026, the best hope for a better Monaco might be finding some way to change up the track configuration a little bit within the constraints of, you know, not entirely changing the geography of the principality.
Yeah, the Okay. So yeah, so I've seen the James Vowles and Toto thing and I didn't think to bring it up because I feel like we talk about it every single day and I also just keep seeing memes and me and my friend keep sending them back and forth because we both
Yeah.
love James and Toto. But yeah, no, it's been very entertaining, especially because like James is the protege and everything. But
Yeah.
okay, so the other thing that I've been seeing, and I have been traveling around the country for work this week, so I've not done any research in this, but I know that you have because you're you. The Flexi-Wing ban. So what I know it starts for Spain, but like I don't understand it. So please explain it to me like I am 5.
Okay, so taking us back to 2024, I believe it was Belgium, the FIA started putting more focus on the front wings of the F1 cars because obviously that involves a lot of the aerodynamics of these cars, and they noticed that there was a potential for teams to be able to take advantage of, if the more flexible the front of your car is, especially when you're in these really tight turns, the easier that the car is going to react to a turn and the easier you're going to be able to keep your pace and your speed on track. And they don't want teams to be able to take too much of an advantage. So they've basically made a full-on regulation change, and they've given the teams these first 8 races to have time to basically create new front wing structures of their cars for the teams that were out of compliance until we get to Spain, where these tighter restrictions of the flexibility will come in. And it's the same thing that we've been talking about with the skid planks,
Right.
actually, where the skid planks, you have that range of wear of the skid plank. And if you're if the skid plank wears too much, then you're going to be out of compliance and your car is going to get disqualified, and it's going to be a really awkward night for Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc and Pierre Gasly. That was a few weeks ago. But in this, the adjustment of the regulation is now, it used to be 15 millimeters when you've got symmetrical amount of pressure being applied to the wing from the top. It used to be 15 millimeters, now it is 10. And then from the side, it used to be, where did I have it? It is in my notes. It used to be 20 millimeters, now it is 15. So the moral of the story here is this could have a significant impact on some teams, or this could do absolutely nothing.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because I know the one team that's like everyone keeps questioning if they're in compliance is McLaren.
Yes.
And I'm sure they're like, we're fine.
We're totally fine. Well, but the funny thing that, since you said that, is that they have been like, oh yeah, we're totally fine. We actually tested a new stiffer front wing in Imola. And I'm like, that's all great and all that you've done that, but if you forget Imola from a couple of weeks ago, McLaren had no ability to beat Max with this new wing.
Imola's not a great test, though.
Yes. So it could be that Imola is just generally not a great track. For Red Bull, Barcelona is a good track. So this will be very interesting to see just how much it's going to impact whichever teams have been using a more flexible wing that are going to have to use a stiffer front wing. And this is also a regulation that has already been applied to the rear wings of these cars. So we've already gone through the song of dance of everybody adjusting their rear wings. So now it's all about the front wings. And it like I said, and even Christian Horner has come out and said that it remains to be seen if this is really going to impact anyone. And everyone's just kind of shrugging, and we'll see how it goes. But this has also been, like, pretty much since the beginning of the season, the hallmark of, if McLaren is beatable, we will see it in Spain, and starting with this new regulation.
Yeah, I know. It'll be interesting to see how the McLaren shakes. I think that's the car that I'm the most uncertain about this weekend, because I know, like, everyone keeps talking about Spain, because I know teams have brought some upgrades and they haven't been able to fully see them through because of the tracks. So I think Spain's going to be our first, like, second look, if you will, at the cars. So I think it'll be interesting. But no, super fascinating. It's crazy how, like, 5 millimeters makes such a difference.
It really does. Well, even if you think about, like, the skid planks, which I think they're going to be testing metal skid planks.
Yeah, they are. In Spain.
In Spain. Yeah, they'll be doing that Friday. So as most of you are listening to this, they will be testing these new metal skid planks on the practice day, which the teams, the FIA likes, because it means that they're not going to set the grass on fire in places like Japan and China, but the teams don't like because they wear out faster and they are heavier. So you have all of these considerations that you have to make to keep your car in compliance weight-wise and keep your drivers in compliance weight-wise. And the more weight you add to the car, the slower it's going to be. That's the whole point of Formula One, is making the fastest, legally lightest car possible. So that also could be a really interesting thing to keep an eye on. That won't impact the race because they'll go back to the wood ones, but it would be nice if tracks would not catch fire in the middle of sessions, because those red flags were ridiculous.
Yeah. Okay. Something that's really disappointing going into this weekend as well. I'm personally offended. I know Catherine is as well. I think it would have been the perfect opportunity to do it this weekend because of, like, it would semi look like a Birko ham.
Right.
Steak has chosen not to go with a steak livery, and I'm really upset. Their livery is basically the same thing except, like, semi-pixelated. But yeah, I'm super, super disappointed in Steak's, marketing, PR, design department. I don't know why they just won't do a steak car. I think it'd be so funny. Everyone would love it. But no, we don't get it.
Yeah, I will give them a little bit of credit because they definitely fixed the marketing for it, because I mentioned when they marketed their last special livery, whenever that race was, that I
It
didn't
was
really like it
bad.
because the introduction video was all digitally AI generated, and it clearly looked like it was, and it looked bad. I know that AI is like the new hot thing right now, and everybody wants to make things in AI and nobody cares that people have 6 fingers. But I feel like the way that they've used they've introduced those marketing videos for this livery, the pixelated livery, is better, even though it feels like it's giving Minecraft, which I don't like. I don't even know what Minecraft is. I know it's very popular for people who are younger than I am, but it makes me think of Minecraft when I look at that car because of the pixels.
Yeah. No, I see it. I see it. Do you ever wonder, like, if this will be Fernando's like last home? You know what I'm starting to think that. Like, when are we gonna start getting like, this is Fernando's last this? This is Fernando's last this.
I think that Fernando is not the type to do like the farewell tour, like I always bring up like the Mike Krzyzewski farewell tour when he
Right.
was about to leave Duke. I don't think Fernando cares about that or wants that. So I think that he's just going to announce at the end of a season, or I mean, honestly, because of how how contracts are announced, that's really what dictates how long these farewell tours
Right.
are. Like if you look at Sebastian Vettel's going into the weird silly season of 2022, it that became his farewell tour, was just like, surprise, I'm joining social media to announce that I'm retiring and moving on from Formula 1.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I guess that's kind of what I was saying. Like, this could be his last home race, and we just don't know it. I mean, it
So
won't, because I know he has another year on his contract, but you never
yeah,
know.
so you don't know, but I do think that he's committed to waiting for the new Newey car, and he wants to test out the new regulation. Aston Martin is giving him the opportunity to test out the new regulation, and that will mean that next year in Spain/Madrid, I think, because Madrid is also joining the calendar next year, there's going to be one weird year of overlap. That could be is this the actual Fernando farewell tour
Yeah.
of Spain, which is going to be really interesting. And then of course Carlos is he's home. He is the hometown hero. Everybody loves him. Everybody's really excited to, see him racing at home, especially this is his first time racing at home with Williams. So I think it's going to be a pretty cool weekend for both of them, and I just hope that both of them do well.
I know. Let's hope that Fernando can finally score some points in his home race.
Please.
Okay, so rookie appearances. So who do we have taking a spot in FP1 this weekend?
So for Haas, we have another appearance of Ryo Hirakawa. We saw him earlier this year in Japan with Alpine before he immediately said, I'm going to leave Alpine and go over to Haas because, Alpine. So he will be driving for Esteban Ocon. And then for Williams, Victor Martins will be making his F1 debut. He's currently in F2. He is 8th in the championship right now. He had a podium in Jeddah, and he had 3 other points finishes. He actually beat Ollie Behrman and Isaac Hadjar in 2022 for the F3 championship. Also, former Alpine Academy driver who has left the Alpine Academy, and he was just signed to the Williams Driver Academy in 2025 prior to the season. So another future prospect for Williams. I think that they have a lot of very interesting future prospects of like drivers who are at the right age and right stage of their career to move up to Formula 1 that won't be able to, due to the fact that we have Carlos and Alex in the car pretty solidly right now. But it's
Yeah.
very interesting to see that they're kind of building up a potential backlog that I'm not going to say looks too much like Red Bull's, because Red Bull obviously has a second team to fit drivers into, but they are picking up a lot of capable drivers in their reserve and in their youth stable.
But it's good, and it also, like, is part of JV's plan of, like, we're no longer the feeder team for Mercedes, because it used to be, like, Mercedes young drivers were going to Williams and then going to Mercedes, and
Right.
now it's, like, Williams is truly standing on its own feet, and I think it's so good for them to do that. I think what James is building is amazing, and I'm so excited to see, like, the next 5 years of Williams, but,
Yeah, exactly. So it'll be interesting to see the two of them. Obviously, Hirakawa has done pretty decently in
Yeah.
his appearances so far, and he's older than most of these drivers, so he has a lot more experience in the cars and in these situations. He's tested for years. And then you have like the extreme youth of someone like Martins, so it'd be very interesting to see how they do. That I will wake up for the results of FP1 right as FP2 gets started.
So happy for you. Will not be watching.
Yes, pretty much Europe, thanks.
All right, well, with that, let's get into our predictions for the Spanish Grand Prix. So Catherine and I pick pole, podium, and P10. We give ourselves points. We generally don't give ourselves points because we don't guess these correctly. It is very hard. I implore you to do it along with us. So let's start with pole. So who is your pole sitter for the weekend?
So going to pole sitter, I'm going with basically the person I've picked for pole most of the season. So I'm sticking with Oscar.
Love. I have Oscar as well.
Well, I just think one lap pace is not going to be McLaren's problem for the weekend, which probably means that I'm going to be wrong and that one lap pace will be among McLaren's problems this weekend. But I just can't see myself giving Max pole yet.
Fair. Totally fair. Okay, then with that being said, and your soapbox on, one lap speed, who's your podium?
My podium is then Max, Oscar, Lando. I'm thinking front row Oscar Max, and then a Max overtake at the start of the race, and then he gets the McLarens, and it's basically an Imola situation.
Okay, so I'm gonna hate myself for doing this, but
don't pick George.
Anyways. Hell no, George is never going anywhere near my podium. I have Max, Oscar, Charles.
Okay.
I don't know. I liked what I saw out of the Ferrari last week, and I think they're going to do well in Spain. I don't know why. I just have a feeling that they're going to. So,
yeah, I think that it's going to be really interesting to see if Ferrari can replicate whatever magic they decided to pull out in Monaco, and see if that was just all of a sudden their car is good, or all of a sudden their car was just good in Monaco because of sorcery.
I mean, I know that it's really good in tight corners, and that's or slow corners, and that's all Monaco is, so that probably helped them. But at the same time, I don't know. I think the car's getting better, but maybe that's just the Ferrari fan in me. Okay, then moving on to P10. Catherine and I pick P10 because it's the last place on the grid where you earn a point. We give ourselves 3 because it is very difficult to pick. I picked Ollie Behrman, and I'm not super comfy with this choice, but I also think it's glass half full. I'm hoping for the best for him.
Yeah, Haas has been very interesting lately because they started off with really strong performances from Ollie and nothing from Esteban, and then all of a sudden Esteban had that great points finish in Monaco, and Ollie has been struggling. Obviously, Ollie had that quite awful penalty after overtaking under red flags, and that did not help his case, even though he did end up gaining the most positions in Monaco because he started P20 and finished P12 or 13. So not that it matters because he didn't go home with points. But yeah, Haas has been so interesting this year so far.
Like I said, I don't feel super comfy about it, but I can only pick Isaac Hadjar so many times and be disappointed. So
right, exactly. And disappointed by virtue of the fact that he's been finishing higher than P10. I ended up going with Carlos, who ended up in P10 last race.
That's fair.
I think that could be the ballpark of where we see him. He doesn't always have the best performances at home, not because of home race pressure, but it's the same thing with Yuki in Japan, where Japan just doesn't like Yuki. Carlos and the Spain track don't always have the best relationship. So I think that P10, with the way Williams is driving, could be an option for him. It's lower than I want to see from him, but it's where he could be.
Agreed. I'm very hopeful for the last third of the season for Carlos. So
I think that's really where he's going to shine, and really where he's going to have a lot of surprisingly good results.
Yep. And then just for funsies, Catherine and I pick our big surprise of the weekend, and also who does a dumb. So for biggest surprise, I have that Fernando Alonso finally gets points in his home race.
I also picked Fernando Alonso getting points in his home race.
Love.
because it hasn't, the last couple of races, it really hasn't been a driver induced issue from Fernando. It has been car failure, and there's only so many times that this damn car can fail with Adrian
I
Newey
know.
helping the current 2025 car team on his lunch breaks, which I also think is like the funniest thing, is that they have Adrian Newey so focused on just the 2026 car that sometimes he'll just go pick the brains of the engineers during his lunch break and like give advice to them in his hour-long break from focusing on 2026. He'd be like, hey, show me what you got on 2025. And I just like, that's so typical of Adrian Newey.
Yeah, it's funny. But yeah, I'm hopeful for this weekend.
I would also very much like that, just because like it's like, come on, Fernando, like we need it to happen for him finally.
We do. And then for who's going to do a dumb, what did you put for this weekend?
I have for my dumb, it's going to be McLaren's inability to figure out which driver they're going to support. I just feel like with the Drivers' Championship being so close between Oscar and Lando, that they're just gonna like have a blue screen of death of how they're supposed to strategize. And it will really depend on how they qualify, but even then I think that they're still going to have issues. I was just asked by someone earlier this week about what happened in Hungary between Oscar and Lando and how that all shook out and how awkward, weird that was, and I'm getting the vibes that that's going to happen again.
Yeah, I can see it. So I have Mercedes, and I have a whole theory on Mercedes.
Okay.
I feel like they started off really strong.
Yes.
And they're like, we're killing it. We're amazing. And I think they just got too comfortable. And I think they're going to like kind of start to fall back a little bit and then be like, oh my gosh, what's happening? We need to bring it again. So
Right.
I think they're just kind of like suffering almost from really good performance early on, and they're just kind of like coasting when they still need to build. So I think Mercedes is going to struggle again this weekend because they struggled last week too.
Yeah,
so I think they're going to come off a hard Monaco and just continue to struggle.
Yeah, I think that the real question is the power unit, because it was the power unit failure during qualifying, because both Kimi and George took a bump pretty hard, and we won't have the same, I don't think we'll have that much of an issue of like an actual speed, like not a full-on speed bump, but like there was a bump that they drove over and then all of a sudden the power unit said, off please.
Bye.
And so I don't think that we're going to see that specifically in the Spain track, but I do think that there is a chance of Mercedes having a little bit of a dip, shall we say.
Yeah, agreed. Alrighty, well, I'm really excited to tune in for Spain this weekend, even though it is going to be early, but it won't be as early for me because I'm on the East Coast this weekend.
Yeah.
But no, I'm excited for Spain. Honestly, I'm just excited to get back to good racing. I know that's hard to say because this is our third race, in a row, and we have had racing. But even watching Monaco, like, in the most perfect setup last weekend on, like, a huge screen surround sound, it was still
a parade.
Depressing and, like, a parade, and it wasn't fun. So I'm back to watching it on my laptop while I travel, and I think it'll be a more enjoyable experience because we have better racing in Spain.
Yeah, this will actually be my last race watching on a television because I am going to California next week.
We're going to camp.
We're going to camp for another summer of running a podcast and running a summer camp and watching the races on my handy dandy iPad and laptop because I have to have the race on one and the data channel on the other. But I'm excited for Spain, just like you think. Not only has it been, Imola was a weird race, Monaco was a weird race in a bad way, but we also had, like, we're coming off of Miami as well in this stretch of weird, not great televised racing and just not great racing in general and for TV. So I'm excited to see what we're going to get. I even saw ESPN aired a commercial about Spain, and other than including a really awkward stand up of Carlos introducing this F1 goes to Spain, like it was so awkwardly done. Like I don't know what time of day they had him film that, but it was if you see that F1 commercial in the States, you'll know what I'm talking about. It was painfully awkward, and it's like Carlos is a lot better at this media stuff than that. So I'm like, they caught him at a very bad time. But yeah, I'm very excited to see this race. I'm very excited to hopefully end the triple header on a high note.
Yeah, agreed. All right, well, make sure that you're catching up with us this weekend on social media, going.off.track on Instagram.
And don't forget to send us your podium picks.
And don't forget to send us your podium picks so we can have a guest picker on our recap episode, which will be out on Monday. But yeah, that's all we have for Spain. Thanks for going off track with us, guys.